Have you lost something of value?
I've been looking everywhere for it.
That's our question today. You know, we often lose things that are valuable to us, and depending on what they are, we will go to great lengths to get them back.
Yeah, tear up a couch, pull up one time you tore up carpet, I remember, to find a little diamond, right?
Valuable diamond, and you know, I was ready to tear up whatever I had to find that thing. It was valuable to me. So we're looking at this story out of Luke chapter 15, and I'm sure you've heard this story, the parable of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. Now, these were stories of what God values, and he values you and I. But he's sharing this story to a religious crowd that is challenging him. The Pharisees came in, they challenged him about, what are you doing eating with sinners, man, hanging out with them? And Jesus shared these three parables.
It's so interesting. Jesus is a storyteller, and that their question to him is his response was storytelling. And then he told three stories that have always been taught completely separate from one another, but really it's important to realize they're connected.
So if you look at the start of this story, a certain man had two sons, and the younger one came to him and said, can you give me my portions of goods that falls to me? So he divided them, his livelihood. And not many days after that, the young son left off, and he took it. Now, the son got into spending all his money. Have you had a son, you gave him a lot and came back with none of it? This is what happened here. But then there became great want in that city. And he was out of money. He couldn't find work anywhere. And he found a guy, said, man, I'll do anything. So he had him feeding his pigs. And I don't know if you get this, but for a Jewish son of value to be feeding pigs, that's like the worst of the worst. Now, he's sharing this to challenge these Pharisees that God valued his son. He valued his son. And these Pharisees were looking at these people that Jesus was hanging with, and basically they're sinners. They're not very valuable. Well, what does God say that's valuable? So the son came to himself. How many of you have come to yourself?
Yeah, this is, of course, the famous story of the prodigal son. And what I love about it so much is it's showing you really the heart of God, how God looks at people. And sometimes we wonder, because we can get often pious and critical and fault-finding with people, and God's not like that. And this story tells that.
So he found himself hungering after what he was feeding the pigs. And I don't know if you've fed any pigs, but boy, they eat some nasty stuff. And he came to himself. He got out of that mode to where, you know, I'm going to go back, and I know my father's going to tell me, I told you so, son. But he's saying, I'm going to tell my father I'll even be like one of your hired servants. Even they have enough and more. And here I am starving with these pigs. So he took off a far journey. But here's what caught my eye. The father saw his son from afar off. It's like he'd been looking for him, waiting for his return. And he didn't wait with his arms crossed. I'll wait until he gets here and I'm going to give him a mouthful. No, he ran to meet him. He wrapped his arms around him and he kissed him. Now this is the one that was off, blew all his money, and is coming back like, oh, you want to come back now? You're out of money, aren't you? No, he embraced his son. What do you see out of that, Denise? How does that minister to you, the father's heart for his son?
Well, it just forever settles the way God sees people and the attitude he has toward people. So that gives me a never give up attitude toward people, because God doesn't give up. And when people do come to themselves and come back, we need to meet them right where they're at. And I love that part. But of course, the famous part of this that we want to get to is this older brother's reaction.
This self-righteous, religious older brother.
And this says so much about how we don't want to be, but so often we are.
So this father's given his son kill a fatted calf, man. It's time to have a party. Gave him a rose, gave him rings, sandals on his feet.
A robe.
A robe, which represents our self-righteousness. We won't have time to go in all that. And the brother was going, hey, he called to one of the other servants, what's going on up there? your brother has come home and they're throwing a party for him. Boy, he got mad. And he wouldn't come in, so the father had to go out and say, hey, it's good that you come in and be a part of this. I have served you my whole life. I've done everything you said, and you've not even given me a party with a goat for my friends. And the father said, son, you've always been with me. Everything I have is yours. I would have given you a party anytime you wanted to. See, but self-righteousness will keep you from receiving the goodness of God.
Now, that's my favorite part of the story. And even though those words aren't in there verbatim, it's like God is saying, you could have had a party anytime. If you're feeling alienated, forlorn, left out, not appreciated, God's saying, listen, we can have a party anytime. You're faithful. And you've got to be able, your heart has to be able to receive the goodness of God.
He saw that his father was blessing his brother, and he was angry. He spent all your money on harlots and livelihood, and you killed a fatted calf. and
we're not eating cats or bats.
And so I want to say to you, we have a lot of people in our culture. I wonder if we could see the religious left right now that are coming against people for all the things that are going on. I mean, this society has been all but stopped almost.
I think what you're meaning is that Pharisaical attitude the older brother had was so unbecoming, and it's so scrutinizing and critical and religious. And we see it in our society now permeating, where everything is, all the political correctness that's going on with social justice movement, it's so pathetic because it's not like Jesus in the first place, because Jesus is the Prince of Peace. He's the one he's the only one that can deal with all these racial divides and all the misunderstandings and all the areas where people have been, yes, we understand people have been hurt and wounded, and it's happening every day, these injustices. And I'm not minimizing those, but I'm saying our response to it is not to destroy our society.
But it's to restore the lost.
Jesus even said, people. I want to read this verse, Dennis, out of Matthew 10:16, where Jesus was talking, and he said, now remember, it is I who sends you out. Even though you feel vulnerable as lambs going into a pack of wolves, be as shrewd as snakes, but as harmless as doves. And that's the kind of attitude we need to adopt. But
there's wolves out there.
But don't fall into the trap of nitpicking and scrutinizing. That's the way the Pharisees were with Jesus. I looked up all the verses where they watched him, they waited. I mean, when Judas betrayed Jesus, there was a whole plot behind the scenes going on to sabotage him. And this is what's going on so predominantly in our society. And I'm saying, don't get sucked into this trap of being that way. It's demonic.
Just stop and look at the fruit of what we've been seeing. And is that fruit the fruit of righteousness, or is it a fruit of self-righteousness? Is it judging? I mean, have you ever walked into a grocery store and you're the only one there without a mask and everybody's looking at you like, how dare you? See, this self-righteousness is trying to get worked into our community through our news, through the Democratic Party, and we've got to wake up and shake our heads here. Mm-hmm. We can't fall into the trap of there being the religious older brother.
And really, what we're seeing going on, it's right out of a playbook of how to overthrow a country. And this kind of thing is going on, and it's a Marxist ideology to divide the people so that you can collapse an economy and take over. Don't give into it. We have freedom to protect, and we have to value our history and not revise it.
So I'm going to pray with you right now, and this is the prayer I feel led to pray. Father, I pray that we'll know the truth, your truth, and the truth will set us free. So if there's anybody out there and they've been sucked away, they've become like this Pharisaical older brother and they want free, God, I pray they know this truth today of your goodness, and this truth will set them free of how valuable you see them as.
Yes.
In Jesus' name.
And you could have had a party anytime, God said.
Thanks for tuning in. You can go to capramen.com. Be a part of helping us touch the world with this gospel.